What if Sung Jin-Woo was never weak? What if, from the very moment he was born, he already possessed the full power of the Shadow Monarch? No struggle. No system. No second chance. Just absolute power. And a heart that chose darkness. In this timeline, there is no hero. Only a king of shadows, who was never meant to save humanity. What if Sung Jin-Woo was evil from the beginning? Part 1, The Child of Darkness. The hospital room was silent. Too silent. Doctors stood frozen. Machines flickered. The air itself felt wrong. A newborn child lay in his mother's arms. But something about him was different. His eyes opened. Dark. Not black. Not brown. But something deeper. Like an endless void. The lights above began to flicker violently. The shadows in the room stretched unnaturally across the walls. And then, they moved. The nurses screamed. The shadows twisted like living things. Reaching. Crawling. Watching. The doctor stepped back in fear. What is that? The child didn't cry. Didn't move. Didn't react. He simply stared. And in that moment, every person in the room felt it. A presence. Ancient. Cold. Watching through him. The shadows suddenly snapped back to normal. The light stabilized. The room fell silent again. As if nothing had happened. But everyone knew. This child was not normal. Years later, Sung Jin-Woo was different. From the moment he could walk, things followed him. Shadows moved when they shouldn't. Objects shifted slightly in the dark. People felt uncomfortable around him. Teachers avoided him. Children stayed away. And Jin-Woo never cared. Because deep inside, he already understood something. He was not like them. One night, when he was still a child, he stood alone in his room. The lights were off. The moon barely reached the floor. And the shadows gathered around him. Not randomly. Not naturally. But intentionally. As if they were waiting. Watching. Listening. Jin-Woo spoke quietly. "What are you?" The shadows responded. They rose from the ground. Forming shapes. Figures. Soldiers. Creatures made of darkness. And then, they bowed. Jin-Woo's eyes widened slightly. Not in fear. But in realization. They belong to me. The moment those words left his mouth, the entire room trembled. The shadows grew stronger. More defined. More real. And a voice echoed inside his mind. Not loud. Not aggressive. But calm. Ancient. "You are the king." Jin-Woo didn't question it. Didn't hesitate. Because it felt natural. Like something he had always known. The first command. The next day, a group of bullies cornered him. Just like always. "You think you're better than us?" One of them shoved him. Jin-Woo didn't react. Another punched him. Still nothing. Then one of them laughed. "Look at him, he's not even fighting back." Jin-Woo slowly looked up. His eyes darker than usual. No. The air suddenly dropped in temperature. The shadows beneath their feet began to move. "I'm just not interested." The ground behind them twisted. And something rose. A massive shadow. Humanoid. Armored. With glowing eyes. The bullies froze. What is that?" Jin-Woo turned away. Walking calmly. "Kill them." The shadows obeyed. Screams filled the alley. But JIN-WOO didn't look back. Didn't hesitate. Didn't feel anything. Because in this world, he had already made his choice. Not to become a hero. Not to protect others. But to rule. The birth of a monster. Years passed. Dungeons began appearing across the world. Hunters awakened. Society changed. But JIN-WOO was already far beyond them. While others struggled to survive, he controlled an army. While hunters feared monsters, monsters feared him. Because every creature he killed rose again. Stronger. Loyal. Bound to his will. His shadow army grew endlessly. And the world had no idea what had been born among them. The first king rises. One night, JIN-WOO stood on top of a skyscraper. The city glowing beneath him. Thousands of shadows stretching across the streets. His army. His kingdom. He closed his eyes. And felt it. The power. The presence. The voice. You are ready. JIN-WOO opened his eyes. A faint smile forming. Good. Because the world wasn't broken yet. But it would be. And when it was, there would only be one ruler left standing. The Shadow Monarch. Not a savior. Not a protector. But a king. Who was never meant to be good. What if JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 2, The Hunter Who Hunts Hunters. The world had changed. Dungeons had appeared. Monsters roamed beyond the gates. And humanity created hunters to survive. People with power. People with abilities. People who believed. They were strong. But they had never met JIN-WOO. The first S-rank dungeon break shook the country. Sirens screamed across the city. Hunters were deployed immediately. S-rank teams. Elite fighters. The strongest humanity had to offer. Because inside that gate, something had gone wrong. Very wrong. When they entered, the dungeon was silent. Too silent. No monsters. No movement. Just darkness. One hunter whispered. Something's off. Another nodded. Stay alert. But they were already too late. The shadows beneath their feet began to move. At first, slowly. Then violently. Stretching. Twisting. Rising. One hunter shouted. Get back. But it was too late. The shadows pulled him down instantly. No scream. No struggle. Just silence. Then, they appeared. Figures made of darkness. Soldiers. Knights. Creatures with glowing blue eyes. An army. Watching. Waiting. And then, they attacked. The battle lasted less than a minute. S-rank hunters. The strongest humans alive. Erased. One by one. Dragged into the shadows. Torn apart. Overwhelmed. They never stood a chance. Because this wasn't a dungeon. This was a kingdom. And at the center of it stood a single figure. JIN-WOO. He walked slowly through the battlefield. Looking down at the fallen hunters. No emotion. No hesitation. Just observation. They're weaker than I expected. One of the hunters was still alive. Barely breathing. He reached out. Please? JIN-WOO looked at him. Cold. Distant. Why should I? The man's hand trembled. I'm a hunter? I protect people. JIN-WOO tilted his head slightly. And? The man froze. JIN-WOO's eyes darkened. You protect them. Because you're afraid. The shadows around them grew. You're no different from monsters. He raised his hand. Arise. The battlefield shifted. The dead hunters trembled. Their bodies dissolved into darkness. And then? They stood again. Eyes glowing. Silent. Loyal. His soldiers now. JIN-WOO turned away, walking toward the dungeon exit. His army following behind him. Stronger than before. Always growing. Always evolving. The world notices. Hours later. The news exploded. Every channel. Every broadcast. Every country. The same report. An entire S-rank team has been wiped out. No survivors. No explanation. No trace of monsters. Only one thing remained. A single message carved into the dungeon wall. This world belongs to the shadows. Governments panicked. Hunter associations went on high alert. Emergency meetings were called. Because something had appeared. Something beyond hunters. Beyond monsters. Beyond understanding. A being that hunted the hunters. The first name. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know where he came from. But survivors from other incidents started saying the same thing. A man with glowing eyes. An army of shadows. A king. And soon, the world gave him a name. The Shadow Monarch. A new target. Back in the shadows. JIN-WOO stood on top of a building, looking down at the city. Lights flickering below. Humans moving like nothing had changed. But everything had. They are starting to notice. The voice returned. Calm. Ancient. Watching. Good. JIN-WOO closed his eyes. I'm getting bored. The shadows around him trembled. Excited. Hungry. Waiting. Then let's make this interesting. His eyes opened. Glowing brighter than ever before. And far below. In a high-security facility. An S-rank hunter suddenly froze. A chill ran down his spine. Because for the first time in his life, he felt fear. Not of monsters. Not of dungeons. But of something far worse. Something was coming. And it wasn't hunting monsters anymore. It was hunting them. End of part 2. What if JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 3, The King vs. the Nation. The world had made its decision. JIN-WOO was no longer a threat to monitor. He was a threat to eliminate. Across the globe. Military forces mobilized. Fighter jets filled the skies. Missile systems locked onto targets. Hunter associations declared emergency war status. For the first time in history, humanity united. Not against monsters, but against one man. The first strike. JIN-WOO stood alone in the center of a ruined city. The wind howled around him. Ash fell like snow. His shadow army stretched endlessly behind him. Silent. Waiting. Watching. Above him. The sky roared. Jets screamed through the clouds. Missiles locked. Weapons ready. A voice echoed through loudspeakers. JIN-WOO. You are ordered to surrender immediately. No response. Failure to comply will result in immediate execution. JIN-WOO looked up slowly. His eyes glowing faintly. Execution. A small smile formed. You're welcome to try. The sky lit up. Missiles launched. Dozens. Hundreds. All aimed at one target. The power of a king. The explosions were instant. The entire city vanished in fire. Buildings collapsed. The ground shattered. Flames consumed everything. From miles away, it looked like the end. But from within the fire, something moved. The flames split. Darkness expanded. And from the burning ruins, they rose. Shadows. Thousands of them. Emerging from the destruction. Stronger. Larger. More terrifying than before. And at the center, JIN-WOO stepped forward. Completely unharmed. His coat barely moving in the heat. His expression unchanged. Was that supposed to kill me? He raised his hand. And the ground beneath the military forces shifted. The fall of the army. Shadow soldiers erupted from beneath tanks. From beneath helicopters. From beneath the soldiers themselves. Screams filled the battlefield. Guns fired. Missiles launched again. But it didn't matter. The shadows adapted. They moved faster. Stronger. Relentless. Every fallen soldier joined the army. JIN-WOO walked forward slowly. Through chaos. Through fire. Through death. Watching. Learning. Evolving. A general shouted into comms. Retreat! Retreat now. He never finished. A shadow blade pierced through his chest. The S-rank counterattack. Then, they arrived. The strongest hunters in the world. S-rank elites. From every nation. Dozens of them. Standing together. For the first time. This ends here. One of them stepped forward. Energy surged around his body. We don't care what you are. We'll kill you. JIN-WOO stopped walking. For the first time. He looked interested. Finally. The battle of gods. The ground shattered as they clashed. Explosions of energy tore through the city. Fire. Ice. Lightning. Destruction. The combined power of humanity's strongest fighters. Against one being. And still. It wasn't enough. JIN-WOO moved through them effortlessly. Dodging attacks. Breaking defenses. Overpowering abilities. One S-rank lunged forward. JIN-WOO caught his arm. Crushed it instantly. No hesitation. No emotion. Another attacked from behind. A shadow impaled him midair. One by one. They fell. The one who survived. Only one hunter remained. Barely standing. Bleeding. Terrified. JIN-WOO approached slowly. Looking down at him. You're the strongest one here. The hunter tried to stand. Failed. Monster. JIN-WOO's eyes darkened. No. The shadows behind him rose higher. Endless. Towering. Godlike. I'm the king. He turned away. Leave. The hunter froze. What? Go back. JIN-WOO didn't look at him. Tell them. The shadows began to spread across the entire battlefield. Covering everything. War has already ended. The message to the world. Hours later. The survivor delivered the message. Broadcasted across every nation. Every screen. Every system. His voice shook. But the words were clear. You cannot win. He is not human. He is not a hunter. He paused. Trembling. He is the Shadow Monarch. The king watches. High above the world. On a throne of shadows. JIN-WOO Saturday. Looking down at humanity. Silent. Calm. Unchallenged. You've become something beyond them. The ancient voice returned. Watching. Guiding. JIN-WOO rested his head on his hand. And they're still disappointing. Far below. Cities trembled. Governments collapsed. Fear spread. Because now? It wasn't a battle anymore. It was domination. And humanity had just realized something terrifying. They weren't fighting to win anymore. They were fighting to survive. End of part 3. What if Sung JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 4. The world kneels. The world did not surrender. Not completely. Even after the fall of entire armies. Even after S-rank hunters were wiped out. Even after the message was broadcast to every nation. You cannot win. There were still those who refused to kneel. The resistance. Hidden across the world. Small groups began to form. Hunters. Soldiers. Survivors. People who had lost everything. Cities in ruins became strongholds. Underground bunkers became headquarters. Weapons were rebuilt. Strategies rewritten. Hope barely alive. This isn't over. A woman stood at the center of one of these groups. An S-rank hunter. One of the last. We don't need to win. Her voice was steady. Cold. Determined. We just need to hurt him. Around her. Others nodded. Not confident. Not fearless. But willing. Because even if the world was ending, they would not go quietly. The king watches. High above. On his throne of shadows. JIN-WOO observed everything. The resistance. The movements. The plans. He saw it all. Felt it all. They're still trying. His voice was calm. Almost bored. The ancient voice echoed. They fear you. JIN-WOO rested his chin on his hand. Looking down at the world like it was nothing more than a game. No. His eyes glowed faintly. They just don't understand yet. The first uprising. It started in silence. A hidden base. Deep underground. Shielded from detection. Dozens of hunters gathered. Preparing. Waiting. This is our only chance. The S-rank leader looked at them all. If we hit him together, we might actually damage him. No one believed it. But no one said it out loud. Move out. The attack on a god. They found him. Standing alone. In the ruins of a city. No army. No guards. Just him. The perfect opportunity. Now. They attacked all at once. Explosions. Energy blasts. Magic. Every ability they had. Unleashed. The city vanished in light. For a moment. They believed it worked. Silence. Smoke. Nothing moving. Then. A single step. JIN-WOO walked out of the destruction. Completely untouched. That's it. The end of hope. The ground beneath them shifted. Shadows erupted. Faster than before. Stronger than before. Smarter. They adapted instantly. Hunters fell. One by one. No resistance. No escape. The S-rank leader charged forward. Screaming. Refusing to give up. JIN-WOO appeared in front of her instantly. She froze. His eyes met hers. Why? She asked. Why are you doing this? JIN-WOO looked at her. Not angry. Not cruel. Just empty. Because I can. The shadows pierced through her. She fell. And with her. The resistance broke. The moment the world changed. Hours later. The footage spread. Every screen. Every country. Every survivor. They saw it. The truth. There was no fight left. Cities began to surrender. Governments collapsed. Leaders vanished. People stopped resisting. Not because they wanted to, but because they finally understood. This wasn't war. This was extinction. The world kneels. Across the planet, people drop to their knees. In streets. In ruins. In silence. Not ordered. Not forced. But broken. JIN-WOO stood above it all. Looking down. The entire world beneath him. Quiet. Still. Defeated. Finally. The shadows stretched across the earth. Covering everything. Claiming everything. You understand. Something changes. But deep inside, something shifted. The ancient voice grew stronger. Clearer. Closer. You have done well. JIN-WOO closed his eyes. This still feels incomplete. The world was his. Completely. And yet, something was missing. The voice whispered. Then go further. The beginning of something worse. JIN-WOO opened his eyes. And for the first time, his power surged differently. Darker. Heavier. Ancient. The shadows around him changed. Not just soldiers anymore. Something deeper. Something older. Something. Not from this world. Far beyond the sky. Beyond reality itself. Something watched back. And it smiled. End of part 4. We thank you for watching our What If story about Sung JIN-WOO. Remember to subscribe to our channel for more What If stories in the future. And as always, hail Aurora. What if Sung JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 5, The Birth of a True Monarch. The world was silent. Not peaceful. Silent. Cities no longer resisted. Nations no longer fought. People no longer believed. They obeyed. Or they hid. High above it all, Sung JIN-WOO stood alone. The sky above him had changed. Dark. Cracked. Unnatural. The shadows beneath him were no longer just soldiers. They moved differently now. Breathing. Growing. Watching. Something is changing. The ancient voice returned. Closer than ever before. You feel it. JIN-WOO closed his eyes. The power inside him was no longer stable. It wasn't just growing. It was evolving. The breaking point. Deep within his mind. The shadow world twisted. The endless army. The dark sky. The throne. All of it began to distort. The ground cracked beneath his feet. The sky split open. Something deeper was trying to emerge. JIN-WOO clenched his fist. What is this? The voice answered. Power beyond a monarch. The world around him shattered. The first transformation. Back in reality? JIN-WOO's body began to change. The shadows around him surged violently. His aura exploded outward. Darker than before. Heavier than before. The ground beneath him collapsed. Buildings crumbled. The air itself bent around him. And then? His eyes changed. From purple to something deeper. A color that didn't belong. A void. The shadows behind him rose higher, twisting into massive forms. Not soldiers anymore. Beasts. Giants. Things that should not exist. The new army. Across the world, people saw it. The shadows were no longer human-shaped. They were evolving. Massive winged creatures. Towering armored beings. Entities made of pure darkness. Each one stronger than an army. Each one connected to him. Each one alive. And they all bowed. The return of fear. Even those who had accepted defeat felt it. Something had changed. This wasn't the same being anymore. This was something worse. Something beyond understanding. He's not just controlling shadows anymore. A surviving hunter whispered. He's becoming something else. The voice reveals more. Inside the void, JIN-WOO stood alone. The ancient voice now stood before him. Not as sound, but as presence. Formless. Endless. Watching. You have surpassed the Shadow Monarch. JIN-WOO stared at it. Then what am I becoming? The voice paused, as if deciding how much to reveal. Something greater. The space around them shifted. For a moment, JIN-WOO saw something. A tree. Massive. Endless. Reaching across worlds. And within it, something watching. Something ancient. Then it was gone. The true monarch awakens. JIN-WOO opened his eyes. The world trembled instantly. The sky cracked further. The shadows expanded across entire continents. And his presence changed. He no longer felt like a king. He felt like something above kings. Something absolute. This is better. His voice echoed across the world. Deep. Heavy. Unavoidable. The new rule. He raised his hand. And across the planet, every shadow moved. Not just his army. Every shadow. Buildings. Mountains. People. Everything connected. Everything controlled. The world itself became part of him. The birth of fear. For the first time since surrendering, humanity felt something again. Not hope. Not anger. Not resistance. But pure fear. Because now they understood. They weren't living in his world anymore. They were living inside him. The final line. High above the broken sky, JIN-WOO stood alone. The shadows forming a crown around him. The world beneath him silent. And for the first time, he smiled. Not out of amusement, but realization. I'm no longer your king. The shadows expanded infinitely. I am your world. And somewhere far beyond, something ancient watched him. Interested. End of part 5. What if JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 6, The World Inside the Shadows. The world did not end in fire. It ended in darkness. At first, people thought it was night. A strange night. A heavy one. The kind that felt wrong the moment it touched your skin. But this was not night. This was something else. Something alive. Across entire cities, shadows began stretching farther than they should. Alleys became deeper. Hallways longer. Rooms darker. The ground beneath millions of people no longer looked like ordinary ground. It looked like a surface trying to open. Trying to breathe. Trying to pull them down. And high above the ruined world, JIN-WOO stood alone. Still. Silent. Watching. His new power rolled off him in waves. Not like mana. Not like magic. Not even like monarch energy. This was heavier. Ancient. Endless. It spread across the planet like a second atmosphere. Invisible to some. Terrifying to others. Unavoidable to all. The survivors felt it first. The few cities that still had power saw their lights dim. Their generators flickered. Their walls trembled. Then the shadows inside every room moved at once. Not swaying. Not shifting. Moving. As though every shadow in the world had turned its head in the same direction. Toward him. In a bunker beneath what used to be Seoul. The last organized resistance sat in silence. They no longer looked like soldiers. They looked like ghosts. Hunters with broken armor. Commanders with bloodshot eyes. Civilians who had seen too much. No one spoke until the emergency lights overhead turned black. Not off. Black. As if the darkness itself had swallowed the light. Then one of the technicians screamed. Because the wall in front of them began leaking shadow. It poured downward like liquid. Then upward like smoke. Then it formed faces. No. Not faces. Memories. People they had lost. Hunters who had died. Family members who never came home. Comrades taken by JIN-WOO's army. The bunker erupted in panic. People fired at the walls. Shark guns. Magic bolts. Knives. Nothing mattered. You could not stab darkness. You could not shoot a shadow. And you could not stop something that was already inside the room with you. Miles away. In the shattered remains of Tokyo. Survivors ran through a street that no longer made sense. Buildings were in the wrong places. Doors opened into staircases that led nowhere. A man ran into an apartment block for safety. Only to find himself stepping into the same street again. A woman hid in a subway tunnel. Only to hear whispers behind her in voices that sounded exactly like her children. A hunter tried opening a gate portal to escape. But it didn't open into a dungeon. It opened into blackness. And from that blackness, something blinked. The world was no longer simply being conquered. It was being rewritten. JIN-WOO closed his eyes. And felt it. Every fear. Every scream. Every shadow. Every heartbeat hiding from him. He could sense people crouched beneath desks. People praying in churches. People crying in bathrooms with their hands over their mouths. He could feel them all. Tiny. Fragile. Soft. For the first time since his transformation. He didn't need to search for humanity. Humanity existed inside him now. Inside his reach. Inside his world. The connection is complete. The ancient voice spoke from within the dark. It no longer sounded far away. It sounded close. Close enough to stand behind him. Close enough to whisper directly into his thoughts. JIN-WOO opened his eyes slowly. This is more than control. Yes. The voice lingered. Pleased. Patient. Watching him understand. You are no longer casting shadows onto the world. A pause. Then. The world has entered yours. JIN-WOO looked out across the planet. It was beautiful. In a ruined way. The oceans reflected a darker sky. The continents looked bruised. Cities glowed faintly beneath an endless veil of black and violet. The earth itself seemed to pulse with his presence. He did not smile. He simply accepted it. Like it had always belonged to him. Like this was what he had been born to become. But even now, people kept fighting. That was the part JIN-WOO almost respected. Almost. In New York, a surviving guild barricaded itself inside a collapsed financial district. In Berlin, a group of engineers converted anti-gate tech into localized light barriers. In Busan, 3 remaining S-rank hunters took shift staying awake, refusing to let each other sleep because every dream now led to the same place. A black field. A throne. And a voice asking them one question. Kneel or be taken. They refused. For now. One of those S ranks was named Sōgyō-ka. She had lost her team in the first wars. Lost her brother when his own shadow rose and killed him from behind. Lost her city the day the sky cracked over the sea. But she had not lost her will. And now, staring at the broken world through the window of a ruined tower, she said the words no one else wanted to say. He has a weakness. The others turned. Not hopeful. Not yet. Just desperate enough to listen. You saw it too, she continued. When the darkness spread, it didn't move randomly. It answered him. It changed with him. That means this entire thing is anchored somewhere. A hunter with a shattered arm shook his head. Even if that's true, how does that help us? Hanyul stared into the storm. Because if he's expanding this power through a center. She clenched her fist. Then he can still be wounded. No one answered. Because the logic made sense. And because they were terrified it might not matter. Far above. JIN-WOO suddenly turned his head. He had heard the thought. Not the words. The intent. Hope. Resistance. Strategy. He could feel it because in this new world, even determination cast a shadow. And all shadows belong to him. Interesting, he murmured. The ancient voice stirred again. You still allow them to survive. They amuse me. For now, the voice replied. JIN-WOO said nothing. But inside, something shifted. A flicker. A splinter. A thought that did not belong to the monarch he had become. Why keep them alive? Why allow resistance at all? Why let the world keep crawling when it could simply be still? The thought was colder than any he had ever had. And it did not feel like his own. For the first time, JIN-WOO noticed that. Not the thought. The difference. He stood motionless in the sky while storms rolled beneath him. The shadows curled around his boots. His monstrous new army waited in silence across continents. The entire world bent inward under his will. And yet, a small part of him had begun to ask questions. Not about the world. About the voice. Who are you? Silence. Then the darkness around him thickened. Not aggressively. Not defensively. Like something smiling without a face. I am the one who showed you what you were meant to be. That is not an answer. No, the voice said calmly. It is the only answer you need right now. That should have angered him. But it didn't. What unsettled JIN-WOO was not the refusal. It was that he had asked at all. Below. The resistance made its move. Sōgyō-ka and the remaining hunters had tracked a distortion point in the shadow field. An old cathedral swallowed by black growths and dead sky. Every sensor failed near it. Every drone disappeared. Every scout sent inside either vanished. Or came back wrong. Smiling. Bleeding black from the eyes. Speaking in voices that weren't theirs. But the readings did not lie. This place mattered. They entered at dusk. Or what passed for dusk now? The cathedral doors opened by themselves. Inside, there were no pews. No altar. No roof. Only a vast interior that stretched upward into darkness. The building was bigger on the inside than it could possibly be. The floor reflected no light. And at the center of the hall stood something like a heart. A suspended mass of living shadow. Pulsing. Beating. Connected to nothing. Connected to everything. The hunters froze. One whispered, "What is that?" Hanyul stepped forward carefully. The center. And then every candle in the ruined cathedral lit at once. Purple flame. Cold flame. Impossible flame. And in that glow, they saw shapes lining the walls. Thousands of them. Human silhouettes. pressed into the black stone as if trapped inside it. Some screaming. Some kneeling. Some reaching outward. All silent. All swallowed. The youngest hunter took a step back. Are those people? Before anyone could answer, the heart in the center twitched. Then beat harder. The entire cathedral shook. And a shadow peeled itself off the floor. Then another. Then 20. Then hundreds. Not soldiers. Not beasts. These were robed figures with antlers of black bone and empty faces like polished voids. Something older than any army JIN-WOO had shown before. Something ceremonial. Sacred. Wrong. Hanyul drew her blade. Move! The fight exploded instantly. Light magic tore through the hall. Steel rang against bone-black limbs. Hunters screamed battle cries loud enough to hide their fear. For a moment. For one insane moment. It looked possible. They reached the center. Hanyul's blade cut across the pulsing heart. And the entire world shuddered. Every city on earth felt it. Every shadow spasmed. Every wall cracked. People looked up for the first time in days and saw the darkness above them ripple. As if the sky itself had been wounded. JIN-WOO's eyes widened. Just slightly. Then narrowed. They found it. The ancient voice became sharp. Not angry. Concerned. Then kill them. In the cathedral. Hanyul struck again. The heart split further. Black light poured out. The robed things shrieked without mouths. The trapped silhouettes in the walls began pounding from the inside. And then he arrived. The cathedral went silent the moment JIN-WOO stepped into it. Not because sound vanished. Because fear did. Fear was too small a word now. This was the arrival of something final. His cloak dragged darkness behind him like a second night. His eyes burned with that impossible void color. The robed creatures bowed. The shadow heart beat once. And stilled. Waiting. Hanyul stood between him and the rupture. Bleeding. Exhausted. Terrified. Still standing. So, JIN-WOO said softly. You're the one. She tightened her grip. If you can bleed. She coughed black dust. Then you can die. For the first time in what felt like forever. JIN-WOO smiled. A real smile. Small. Interested. Dangerous. Good. He took one step forward. Then try. And somewhere beyond the cathedral. Beyond the dark world. Beyond even the shadows themselves. Something ancient watched this moment unfold. Not interfering. Not speaking. Only watching. As if waiting to see whether JIN-WOO would remain a king. Or become something even worse. End of part 6. What if JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 7, the heart of the shadow world. The world had a pulse. And for the first time, it skipped. Across the planet. Every shadow trembled. Not violently. Not uncontrollably. Just enough. Enough for people to notice. Enough for hope to return. In broken cities. Survivors looked up. In bunkers. Hunters froze mid-step. In the endless darkness that now covered the sky. Something had shifted. Because deep inside the shadow world, something had been wounded. The first crack. Inside the cathedral. The air felt heavier than before. The massive shadow heart pulsed violently. Cracked. Leaking dark energy into the space around it. Each beat distorted reality. Walls stretched. The ground bent. Time itself felt unstable. Hanyul Seo stood barely able to breathe. Her body was broken. her weapon shaking in her hand. But her eyes? Still burned. We did it. Behind her? The remaining hunters struggled to stand. Most of them were already gone. Those who remained were barely holding on. But they had done something impossible. They had hurt him. The arrival of the king. Then, everything stopped. The shadows froze. The heart slowed. The distorted world stilled. And he stepped forward. Sung JIN-WOO. No explosion. No dramatic entrance. Just presence. And that alone crushed everything. The hunters couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Fear wasn't the word anymore. This was something deeper. Something final. JIN-WOO looked at the heart. Then at Hanyul. You found it. His voice was calm. Too calm. Hanyul forced herself to stand straight. If you can bleed. Her voice cracked. You can die. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then JIN-WOO smiled. Not amused. Not mocking. Interested. Something feels wrong. But as he looked at the cracked heart, something inside him shifted. He felt it. A weakness. A connection. A flaw. The world. His world. Was tied to this. So this is the anchor. The ancient voice spoke instantly. Destroy them. JIN-WOO didn't move. Now. Still. He didn't move. Because for the first time, he questioned it. The question. Why? Silence. The shadows around him flickered slightly. The voice returned. They threaten your control. That's not what I asked. The air grew heavier. They are insignificant. Then why does this matter? For the first time, the voice hesitated. And JIN-WOO noticed. The truth begins to crack. Behind him, the shadow heart pulsed again. Stronger. Unstable. And with each beat, memories surfaced. Not his. Other people's. Voices. Screams. Lives. Millions of them. Trapped. Inside the shadows. Inside his power. JIN-WOO's eyes widened slightly. This isn't just control. The voice answered. No. And now. It sounded different. Less calm. Less distant. You are becoming something greater. At what cost? The silence that followed said everything. The resistance moves. Hanyul saw it. The hesitation. The shift. Now. She charged forward. The remaining hunters followed. They weren't strong enough. They knew that. But they didn't need to be. They just needed one moment. One chance. The strike. Hanyul leapt forward. Her blade glowing with everything she had left. She struck the heart again. This time. It broke. A massive crack split across it. The entire world screamed. Not metaphorically. Actually screamed. Across continents. People dropped to their knees. The shadows twisted violently. The sky split further. JIN-WOO felt it. Pain. Real pain. The first time. For the first time. Since becoming this being. He felt something real. His body staggered slightly. So this is what it feels like. The hunters froze. They saw it. He wasn't untouchable. The decision. The ancient voice returned instantly. Kill them. Stronger now. Sharper. End this. JIN-WOO looked at Hanyul. At the hunters. At the broken heart. At the world trembling beneath him. Then he looked up. Beyond the cathedral. Beyond the sky. Beyond everything. Who are you really? The shadows exploded. Not outward. Inward. Like something reacting. Like something being challenged. The reveal. Almost. For a brief moment. Just a moment. The world changed. JIN-WOO saw it again. The tree. Endless. Massive. Branches stretching across realities. And within it, something watching him. Not controlling. Observing. Waiting. Then, it vanished. The breaking point. The voice returned. Now fully present. You are not ready to understand. JIN-WOO's expression darkened. Then I'll force you to explain. The shadows around him surged violently. Not obeying. Reacting. For the first time. There was resistance. Not from humans. From within his own power. The war within. The cathedral began collapsing. Reality tearing apart. The heart shattered further. The hunters were thrown back. Hanyul hit the ground hard. Barely conscious. JIN-WOO stood at the center. Power clashing against itself. Control. Versus something deeper. This isn't just my power. The voice remained silent. And that silence confirmed everything. The end of the moment. JIN-WOO raised his hand. The shadows obeyed instantly again. The hunters were lifted into the air. Frozen. Hanyul looked at him. Do it. No fear. No hesitation. If you're really a monster. JIN-WOO stared at her. For a long moment. Nothing happened. Then. He dropped them. The shadows released them completely. The cathedral began collapsing faster. Run. The hunters didn't hesitate. They escaped. Barely alive. The aftermath. JIN-WOO stood alone. The heart broken. The connection unstable. The world shaking. And for the first time, he was thinking. Not as a king. Not as a god. But as something else. Something unsure. This isn't over. The ancient voice remained silent. Watching. Waiting. Because now, the story had changed. The final line. High above the broken sky, JIN-WOO stood still. The shadows calmer. But different. Unstable. Evolving. And somewhere deep within him, a question had taken root. One that would change everything. Am I in control? Or am I being controlled? What if Sung JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 8, The War Within the King. The world had been wounded. But it had not died. The shadow heart was cracked. The connection unstable. The balance broken. And for the first time, Sung JIN-WOO was not alone inside himself. The silence before the war. High above the fractured sky, JIN-WOO stood motionless. The shadows around him no longer moved with perfect obedience. They twitched. Delayed. Reacted. You're losing control. The ancient voice spoke. Calm. But no longer distant. JIN-WOO didn't respond. Because he felt it too. Something inside him was pushing back. The challenge. You've been guiding me this whole time. Silence. No. The voice answered. I've been shaping you. The air around him cracked. Then I'm done being shaped. For the first time, JIN-WOO pushed back. And the entire world reacted. The summoning. The shadows across the planet froze. Then split. Not from JIN-WOO's command. From something deeper. Something else. The sky above him opened. Not like before. Not like a crack. But like a doorway. And from it, something stepped through. The hero of justice. He looked human. Simple. Unarmored. But wrong. Too calm. Too still. Too empty. A plain outfit. A blank expression. A presence that didn't match the chaos around him. So this is the king. His voice was flat. Uninterested. JIN-WOO stared at him. Who are you? The man didn't move. I was given a name. A pause. The hero of justice. The shadows around JIN-WOO reacted violently. Not in fear. In resistance. The truth. The ancient voice spoke again. He exists to balance you. JIN-WOO's eyes darkened. You think he can stop me? The voice didn't answer. It didn't need to. The first clash. The ground shattered instantly. The moment they moved, the world broke. JIN-WOO attacked first. A single step. A single strike. The force alone erased everything beneath them. The hero didn't dodge. He punched. And the impact split the sky. The war begins. Cities vanished. Mountains collapsed. Oceans split. Every clash rewrote reality. Every movement shattered space. The shadows tried to intervene. They were erased instantly. JIN-WOO adapted. Faster. Stronger. More precise. But so did his opponent. No fear. No hesitation. No reaction. Just balance. Hours become days. The fight did not stop. Not for a second. Hours passed. Then days. The world no longer kept time. Because time itself was breaking. Days become years. The battle expanded beyond the planet. Into the sky. Into space. Into something beyond both. Years passed. Humanity survived in fragments. Watching. Waiting. Praying. Because the fight never ended. The breaking mind. Inside JIN-WOO. The war grew worse. The voice pushed. The power resisted. And now, the hero stood between both. Why won't you fall? JIN-WOO demanded. The hero answered simply. Because you haven't decided who you are yet. That answer hit harder than any attack. The truth of the fight. This wasn't just a battle of power. It was a battle of control. Of identity. Of will. The voice wanted dominance. The hero represented balance. And JIN-WOO stood between both. The moment that changed everything. After what felt like endless time. They stopped. Just for a second. Floating in a broken sky. The world beneath them barely existing. This isn't your fight. JIN-WOO said. The hero looked at him. It is now. The final line. The shadows rose again. Stronger than ever. But different. No longer fully controlled. No longer fully his. And as the fight resumed, JIN-WOO realized something terrifying. This wasn't a war to win. This was a war to decide what he becomes. End of Part 8. What if Sung JIN-WOO was evil from the beginning? Part 9, The End of the King. The sky was breaking. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. Actually breaking. Cracks of violet and black spread across the heavens like shattered glass, stretching from horizon to horizon above the dead world Jin-WOO had ruled for what felt like an eternity. Below that ruined sky, continents trembled beneath the weight of the shadow world. Cities still stood, but only as broken silhouettes trapped inside an endless dusk. Oceans reflected no sunlight. Mountains cast shadows even when no light touched them. Humanity had survived, but only barely, huddled in the corners of a world that no longer belonged to them. And at the center of all of it, Jin-WOO floated in silence. His body was covered in dark Monarch armor, cracked from years of battle. His eyes still burned with impossible energy. His shadow army stretched behind him across the broken earth like a second civilization. Winged beasts circled the ruined sky. Giant shadow titans stood where towers once had. Millions of lesser soldiers knelt beneath him in absolute stillness, waiting for his command. But for the first time in a very long time, something was wrong. The power inside him was unstable. Not growing. Not evolving. Shaking. The hero of justice hovered across from him in the burning sky, calm as ever, cape moving in the storm like nothing around him mattered. Their battle had lasted beyond ordinary time. Hours had become days. Days had become months. Months had become years. Entire regions of the world had been reshaped by the force of their collisions. Yet still the hero remained. Still he stood. Still he watched Jin-WOO with those unreadable eyes, as if waiting for the one thing Jin-WOO himself had never been willing to face. The truth. Jin-WOO clenched his fist. Purple-black lightning snapped around his arm. The shadow sky responded. But weaker. Just slightly. Enough for him to notice. Enough for the hero to notice too. You feel it, the hero said. Jin-WOO said nothing. But inside his mind, the darkness moved. Not like shadows. Not like soldiers. Like something preparing to leave. The ancient voice had been with him for so long that Jin-WOO no longer remembered what his mind sounded like without it. It had whispered when he was a child. Guided him when he first commanded shadows. Fed him answers when he needed none. Strengthened him. Directed him. Expanded him. Shaped him. And now, for the first time, it was pulling away. Jin-WOO's eyes widened slightly. The void inside him shifted. The endless dark throne room where the voice had once echoed began to collapse inward. The floor cracked. The pillars made of shadow split apart. The sky above that mental world opened to reveal not darkness, but distance. Vast distance. As though whatever had lived inside him all this time had never truly belonged there. Where are you going? Jin-WOO demanded. The answer came, but faintly now. Farther ahead. The voice no longer sounded close. No longer sounded like a whisper behind his eyes. It sounded like something standing at the end of a tunnel, already walking away. You used me, Jin-WOO said. Silence. Then. You were useful. The words hit harder than any blow the hero of justice had landed in all their endless years of battle. The shadow throne behind him disintegrated. The air inside his mind began to thin. Jin-WOO stepped forward in the void, furious now. What was mine? A pause. A long one. Then finally. Enough. And with that, the ancient voice left. Not vanished. Left. It peeled out of him like a tide dragging itself from shore. A black gold pressure ripped out through his spine, his chest, his mind, and the physical world responded instantly. Jin-WOO screamed. The sound shook mountains. The sky above Earth split wider. Millions of shadows across the planet convulsed at once. The hero of justice narrowed his eyes. Because suddenly, the impossible energy surrounding Jin-WOO dropped. Not completely, but massively. Like a god becoming only a king. Like a king becoming only a monster. Like a monster becoming only a man with too much power and not enough control. JIN-WOO clutched his chest. His breathing became ragged. The dark aura around him flickered violently. No. For the first time in this entire story, there was fear in his voice. He looked at his hands. The energy still there was enormous, far beyond normal hunters, beyond monarchs, beyond most things the world had ever known. But it was not what it had been. Not even close. He could feel the absence. A gulf. A missing weight. An emptiness where a universe of power had once lived. And with that emptiness came something even worse. Understanding. A lot of this power, his voice came out strained, was never mine. Across from him, the hero of justice finally shifted posture. Not aggressively. Knowingly. He had been waiting for this. That's why you kept fighting, JIN-WOO muttered. The hero nodded once. You were never battling just me. JIN-WOO looked down. The shadow world below him trembled. Entire districts of darkness flickered like dying fire. The shadow rivers between ruined cities slowed. The giant beasts in the sky let out unnatural cries. Some of the more monstrous entities began dissolving at the edges. The world felt it too. All across the planet, survivors looked up. The shadow pressure that had sat on their lungs for years weakened. Not gone. Weakened. In bunkers, resistance leaders stood from their seats. In collapsed cathedrals, wounded hunters lifted their heads. In half-dead cities where no one had dared hope, sunlight almost seemed possible again. The hero of justice looked at JIN-WOO one last time, then did something JIN-WOO hadn't expected. He turned away from him and faced the world. Then he spoke. Not loudly, but with such force that the message carried across continents, through shadow storms, through broken radio towers, through every crack in the dying shadow world. He can be beaten. Humanity froze. The hero continued. The power controlling him is gone. The word spread faster than fire. He still has his army. He still has strength. But he is no longer untouchable. In Seoul, someone heard it through a broken emergency speaker. In Tokyo, a wounded hunter repeated it to a room full of civilians. In the shattered remains of New York, fighters who had hidden for months stepped back into the streets. In Berlin, survivors tore down shadow barricades. In Busan, Hanyul Seo opened her eyes and stood. The hero's voice cut through the entire wounded planet. If you want your world back. He turned toward JIN-WOO again. Attack now. And humanity answered. The first missiles rose from hidden silos long thought destroyed. Then came aircraft. Then the surviving hunters. Then the rebels. Then the desperate. Then every last person who had spent years living beneath the rule of the shadows and had waited for one impossible moment to finally strike back. Across the planet, lights came on. Generators roared alive. Weapon systems rebooted. Magic circles ignited. Swords were drawn. Rifles loaded. Cannons turned skyward. The world that had been forced to kneel stood. JIN-WOO straightened himself and looked down at the rising resistance. His face hardened again. Even wounded, even diminished, he was still Sung JIN-WOO. Still the monarch who had conquered the world. Still the master of shadows. Still capable of bringing death on a scale humanity could barely comprehend. And now he was alone. No voice. No hidden guide. No ancient thing lending him borrowed divinity. Only himself. And his army. His shadows rose behind him in endless formation. A black sea of blades and wings. Giants the size of skyscrapers. Riders mounted on beasts made of void. Legions upon legions of soldiers clawed from death and bound to his will. He looked at the hero of justice. Then at the world. Then he gave the final order. Kill them all. The sky exploded. What followed was not a battle. It was the end of one world and the birth of another. Missiles slammed into flying shadow beasts. Hunters crashed through shadow lines with glowing blades and burning mana. Jets fell from the sky only to take dozens of monsters down with them. Entire districts ignited as shadow titans collided with surviving tanks and awakened warriors. The hero of justice moved like a comet across the battlefield, striking down the largest monsters before they could reform. Sōgyō-ka led the remaining elite hunters directly into the broken heart nodes of the shadow world, destroying one after another as the dark dimension destabilized. Everywhere JIN-WOO looked, people were fighting. Not because they thought they would survive. Because they had decided they would rather die standing than live inside his darkness for another day. That realization shook him more than he expected. Why? He demanded as he tore through a line of hunters with shadow blades. You've already seen what resisting costs. A wounded hunter spat blood and swung anyway. Freedom costs more. JIN-WOO killed him instantly. But the word stayed. Freedom costs more. He turned and blasted an incoming fighter jet from the sky. The burning wreckage fell into a river of shadow and exploded. Then the hero was in front of him again. Their fists collided. The force stripped clouds from the atmosphere. But this time, JIN-WOO slid backward. Not far. But enough. The hero noticed. And so did JIN-WOO. He was weaker. Still terrifying. Still stronger than almost anyone left alive. But weaker. The hero attacked again. Then again. Each blow drove JIN-WOO farther back through the ruined sky. JIN-WOO answered with everything he had left. Shadow spears. Black flame. Monarch blades. Wings of void. A storm of summoned beasts. Entire walls of darkness hurled like continents ripped free. The hero broke through all of it. Not untouched. Not casual anymore. But unstoppable in that simple, merciless way only he could be. Below them, the world continued tearing itself free from shadow domination. Every destroyed node weakened the shadow world further. Every fallen beast removed another piece of JIN-WOO's reach. Every act of resistance reminded the planet it still belonged to itself. JIN-WOO felt the change. The shadows were no longer limitless. No longer fed by an external abyss. He had to command them personally now. Hold them together. Push them. Maintain them. And the world was too large. The war was too wide. The strain began to show. One giant beast dissolved mid-flight. An entire legion lost cohesion and melted into smoke under artillery fire. A winged commander turned to defend JIN-WOO and simply broke apart in the air. No. JIN-WOO's voice was low now. Not disbelief. Desperation. The hero looked at him sadly for the first time. It was never meant to last. JIN-WOO roared and drove forward, smashing the hero through the remains of an orbiting city fragment and down toward Earth. They hit the broken atmosphere like meteors. Fire swallowed them both. The planet shook from the impact. A crater the size of a nation opened beneath them. JIN-WOO rose from the center first, panting now, armor shattered across one shoulder, blood visible at the corner of his mouth. He stared at it. Blood. Real blood. The hero emerged moments later, cape torn, body scorched, expression unchanged. Around the crater's edge, surviving hunters and soldiers gathered. Not charging blindly. Waiting. Watching. Knowing this next moment mattered. JIN-WOO looked around and finally understood the shape of the end. The voice had abandoned him. The world had turned. The shadows were dying. And the hero of justice was still standing. For one long moment, nobody moved. Then Sōgyō-ka stepped to the edge of the crater and shouted the words that shattered the last remains of fear. He can die. Humanity answered with everything it had left. Magic fire rained down. Bullets and missiles screamed overhead. Lances of mana struck from every side. Explosions consumed the crater. JIN-WOO summoned barriers of shadow, but they cracked. He raised armies from the crater floor, but they fell apart under the combined assault. He struck down dozens. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. But the world kept coming. The hero of justice came through the fire last. One step. Then another. Then a final rush straight through the center of the bombardment. JIN-WOO turned to meet him with all the shadow power he had left. They collided in a burst of black and gold so bright it turned night into day. Then silence. When the light faded, JIN-WOO was on his knees. A massive wound burned through the center of his chest. The last concentrated core of his remaining shadow power bled out in streams of violet-black light that rose into the sky and vanished. Around the world, the shadow world collapsed. The false night shattered. The broken sky sealed itself. The endless pressure over the earth lifted. Cities once trapped in dim ruin saw sunlight for the first time in years. Shadow creatures across the globe dissolved into harmless ash. The dead ground breathed again. The world was coming back. JIN-WOO looked up weakly. The hero stood over him. Not triumphant. Not cruel. Just still. JIN-WOO laughed once. Dry. Faint. Bitter. So this is how it ends. The hero said nothing. JIN-WOO looked past him at the horizon, where real light was beginning to break through the clouds. Humans were still standing there. Broken. Exhausted. Bleeding. Alive. He watched them and finally understood what the voice never had. Why they kept rising. Why they never stopped fighting. Why the world had chosen pain over submission. Because a wounded world that belonged to itself was worth more than a perfect world trapped in darkness. His breathing slowed. The shadows. He looked at his fading army. They were loyal. The hero finally answered. So were they. He meant humanity. JIN-WOO closed his eyes. And for the first time since he was a child, there was no voice inside him. No whisper. No guidance. No pressure. Just silence. Real silence. His last breath left him in that silence. And JIN-WOO died. The world did not celebrate immediately. It didn't know how. Too much had been lost. Too much had been broken. Too many years had vanished inside the shadow world. But slowly, the truth settled in. The darkness was gone. The false sky was gone. The fear that had become normal was gone. And the earth was free. Nations emerged from ruins. Cities rebuilt from ash. Hunters became protectors again instead of rebels. Children grew up beneath a real sun. Memorials were built, not just for the dead, but for the years that had been stolen. And the story of JIN-WOO became a warning. Not about power alone, but about what happens when power is guided by something you never truly understand. Some said he had always been doomed. Others said he had been twisted. Others still believed that in the very last moments, there had been regret in him. No one knew for sure. Because the one thing that could have explained everything was gone. The ancient voice had vanished the moment it abandoned him. No trace. No name. No answer. Only absence. And somewhere far beyond the restored world. Beyond sky, beyond shadow, beyond the memory of kings and heroes. Something ancient continued moving through realities. Looking. Waiting. Searching for the next story. The end. Thank you so much for watching this What If. And if you want to watch more of our What If videos, then go check our channel. The Founding Family YouTube channel. Sōgyō-ka. And as always, hail Aurora.
I'm gonna skip my breaks, I'm gonna make mistakes. Try not to hold me down, feel alive when I'm in this town.